Steel Nation, welcome to episode 82 of the Steeler Culture Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thanks to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's podcast episode. The NFL season is right around the corner. Preseason and the regular season will be here before you know it. If you guys are interested in going to any games this year, which I know you are, SeatGeek is the place for you, man. The best ticket search engine for any events, not just football, but it's the summertime. You guys want to get out, enjoy yourselves. Any events you guys are looking forward to going to, SeatGeek has got you. And we got you with a nice coupon code, man. Put the code SteelTwins at checkout. Save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. So once again, powered by SeatGeek. Thanks to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's podcast episode. As we got to talk about George Pickens, man. George Pickens is coming up on a big and important year. Year 3 of George Pickens' rookie contract. We already know what George Pickens is made of. We all know what George Pickens can do. We have already seen what he can do. Honestly, I want to say glimpses of George Pickens because we haven't even seen the best yet. He's not even at his peak.
No, because considering he's only 23 years old, he's entering into his third year. His first 2 years, he had to deal with the worst quarterback room the Steelers have seen in quite a long time. Definitely in our lifetime for sure, because all we know is Ben. We're going to be upfront and honest. All we know is Ben. So we don't really know bad quarterback play, but I mean, how much worse can quarterback play get at this point than what we had to deal with?
I don't ever want to go back. I don't ever want to get that low.
But that's what George Pickens had to deal with. And throughout the first 2 years, I mean, he was able to do what he could, especially last year.
Yes. My God. I mean, he was the first wide receiver since Deontay Johnson did in 2021. It took 3 years to do it. But George Pickens was the first Steelers wide receiver since 2021. Ben's final season to have 1,000 yards. He had 1,140 yards to be exact, along with 5 touchdowns, and he did all that on only 63 receptions. Do the math, that's over 18 yards average.
Yes.
The guy's a playmaker. We know that. The guy is a big play machine. I mean, he had some of the biggest plays of the Steelers offense all last season. In fact, I think some of the biggest plays that we had all last season was all from him.
Yeah, it was a 71-yard touchdown against Cleveland. I think that was week 2, if I'm not mistaken.
He had 66 and gains of 86 versus the Bengals when Mason first started.
Yeah, that wild fingertip catch against Seattle the week after the Bengals game. Like, George Pickens is a highlight reel.
Yeah, and we all know what he did in his rookie year. I mean,
yeah, the one-hander against Cleveland. Like, my goodness.
And he just built upon his rookie year. And now this is my personal opinion. I know Deontay was listed as the number 1, but he didn't play like a number 1, and yes, that was due to the quarterback play, but I also look at what George Pickens did, and with 3 different starting quarterbacks, this guy had over 1,000 yards last year, and that is with games in which he got 36 yards, 25 yards, -1 yard, and 19 yards.
Yeah, there were 6 games last year where he had less than 40 receiving yards. 6.
But he had 5 games last year where he had over 100. In each of those games, the Steelers won. Half of the Steelers' victories last year, Pickens had 100 yards.
Yeah. So now imagine if he had consistent quarterback play at that.
Imagine if we had Mason in the majority of the season, and Pickens was able to create magic with Mason for more than 3 games.
Yeah.
My goodness, man, just imagine. But you see what Pickens did with all that, and as well as having the worst offensive coordinator scheme up his gameplay, which was absolutely atrocious. You look at the Tennessee game. You look at the Patriots game. You look at the Cardinals game.
The Jaguars game.
My God.
It was nothing but the same stuff for George Pickens. He was running the same routes every time. And there was only so much for him to do at that point.
And, of course, all it took was a coordinator change or a coordinator firing and a quarterback change to see what George Pickens can really do when he has someone to not only scheme him properly, but throw him the football. A quarterback who is fearless and a quarterback that is willing to sling it. And we saw what Pickens did. Back-to-back incredible games versus the Bengals, versus the Seahawks. We got to see what Pickens can really do, man. And now he's coming into his 3rd year as the legitimate number 1. Now, the past 2 years, in my opinion, he was the number 1. He wasn't listed as it. He didn't have that responsibility, but he sure as hell played like a number 1. And now this year, pending on no trade of a specific 49er to happen, he will be the number 1 for the Steelers.
Yeah.
And I think we all trust George Pickens to just continue to build upon what he has already done, what he has already shown for the Steelers. And now that he's working with the route god in the offseason, we already know how big a receiver he is. We all know how physical, how dominant he is. at the line of scrimmage, in the 50-50 area as a blocker, right? But once he gets the route running down, once he's a little more consistent with separation, we have an absolute demon at wide receiver, dude. My goodness.
Yeah.
You thought what we saw the first 2 years was incredible, was insane.
Yeah, the ceiling for George Pickens is like Keanu Ben said about his potential. He can't even see it.
No, dude, because now he has a quarterback that is willing to sling it. He has a quarterback who has a chip on his shoulder, Russell Wilson. Same thing with Justin Fields, but Russell Wilson's probably going to be the starter. And he has a coordinator who you saw what he did in Tennessee with a guy like A.J. Brown.
Yeah, if you look at George Pickens, I mean, the body build is pretty similar. Their aggressive tone at the line of scrimmage is pretty much there.
Yeah.
There's similarities is pretty much right there, but I think Pickens is just a little bit more agile than A.J. Brown. I think he has the agility to the par to a DeAndre Hopkins in his prime.
I could see it. I'm not trying to overhype Pickens that much, but I'm telling you, man, just you watch Pickens, you even see clips and edits and highlights. He just has that impact factor. He has that impact player style to him where, like, you could, like, for comparison, I'm going to compare it to Deontay Johnson. Nothing against Deontay. He just wasn't the most impactful. He was a good route runner, as we know. He was dependable. He got better throughout the years. He was underutilized as well, but he didn't have the same impact that Pickens had. So when you compare it to, like, all the other receivers around the league and you see how dominant and how much of a highlight reel they are, I see that in Pickens. We saw that the past 2 years with George Pickens. He's going to continue to bring that, which is why he's the number one and which is why I've been saying he has played like the number one the last 2 years. Now he has that responsibility. There's a lot more pressure on his shoulders, especially since as of now we don't really have any other receivers to depend on yet. But I think we all trust George Pickens to do it. The guy has shown it. The guy has made plays. The guy now is not being held down, even though still putting up great stats the past 2 years.
Yeah.
The sky is the limit for George Pickens. It's unbelievable. I think he could really burst onto the scene and have like another 13, 14, maybe 1,500 yards if given the opportunity, if given the extra targets.
Yeah, dude, that'd be great. The quarterback that he's got, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, they're both not afraid to sling it. Both of them have great deep throwing capabilities. Some of the best in the NFL.
Oh, especially with how we're going to be able to run the ball, and Arthur Smith can hopefully scheme something a little more unpredictable. And Pickens, I know he might be guarded. He might be double teamed. They might have a single high safety to kind of blanket Pickens, knowing that the Steelers don't have any extra dependability at wide receiver, at least not yet. Perhaps that could be with a trade or maybe the emergence, hopefully, of a Roman Wilson. But I don't even think, like, Pickens is just slow. He's hard to slow down.
Yeah.
He's hard to limit because he's such a dominant playmaker.
Yeah. Like,
one-on-one against a cornerback, you trust Pickens. You toss it up, Pickens is going to bring it down 99% of the time.
Exactly. He's a guy that when you throw the ball towards him for a vertical threat or a deep pass, whatnot, I mean, Pickens is a guy to do it. He's got the size. He's got the speed. He's got the hands for sure. I mean, his hands are magnets when it comes to the football. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the 50-50 ball, I mean, he pretty much catches it 100% of the time.
Yes.
He's a guy that you trust wholeheartedly to get the football up there.
Yeah, I think we all believe in George Pickens. I think we all trust George Pickens to be the wide receiver one. And I'm just excited to see what he can do in year 3, knowing what he's already done. And now the benefits, the upgrades that the Steelers offense has had in this offseason. The sky is truly the limit for George Pickens. The guy is a highlight reel. He just brings that impact that other elite receivers bring around the league. Like you look at like a Cooper Kupp, or you look at what DeAndre did in his prime. You look like a Justin Jefferson, like a Jamar Chase.
Yeah,
I see something similar in George Pickens where he's going to continue to put up stats and highlights and massive plays week by week by week when given the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, nothing can stop George Pickens here. So now he's going to be working with, like I said, the upgrades that the Steelers have added to the offense in the offseason. He's going to be the wide receiver one now, and he's just going to continue to build on himself as a receiver, as a player, as a playmaker. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Him being the wide receiver one now, this is his role to keep. This is his role to run with. And he's still at 23 years old. I mean, he hasn't hit his peak yet. hasn't reached his ceiling yet. It's still up there for him to reach and grab.
Yeah.
He's only going to get better for sure. That's why he's working with the route god. He wants to get better. He wants to be the best. He absolutely has the potential to be the best.
Dude, it's crazy because I look back at his last 2 years. You know, Pickens had such a great rookie year, but a lot of us were left like he could have done a lot more.
He absolutely could have done a lot more.
And I say the same thing with last year. Like, he had a phenomenal year too. He put up, you know, almost 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. But he could have done a lot more.
There were games where he was held down. He had negative yards against the freaking Titans. Yeah, we won that game, but it wasn't a pretty win, and Pickens was hardly involved when he should have been.
Yeah.
How do you have a guy like him of that potential, of that caliber, of a superstar in the making, and you scheme up barely anything for him to get negative yardage?
Dude, just look at his route tree. Look at his route sheet versus the Patriots.
It's disgusting. It was horrible.
So now that's gone. That's a non-issue anymore.
Thank God.
That's gone, dude. Like, we don't got to worry about that. So now imagine what Pickens is going to do with the upgrades this season, man. It's exciting. There's a lot to be excited about this team, but if you had to rank like specific players or what's most exciting, Pickens is up there because he could really burst onto the scene as one of the best in the league because I think he has that potential, dude.
As a true X factor.
Yes.
If not already.
Absolutely. I think he already is.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at the Steelers' offense in years past, like, you look at Warren, you look at Najee, you look at Pickens, most importantly, as what gave us anything to look forward to, what gave us any hope, what gave us any great feeling towards the offense.
And those are the guys that you can continue to lean on, that you know that you can depend on. And those are the guys that are just going to make the plays for you, that are going to get you down the field, get you points on the board, get you touchdowns.
And what I'm most looking forward to with George Pickens is not only how is he going to be schemed, but, you know, what extra routes he's been learning. How far along has his route tree come? We know what he can do as a vertical threat in the deep ball. I want to see him more, obviously, in the middle of the field like we saw late last season. You know, I want to see him more towards the middle. I want to see him more, you know, just in the yak ability. We know what he can do in the yak ability as well. I want to see how far along his route tree has come. And that's going to come with route running and the separation. But I want to see where he's benefited in other areas outside of just, you know, being a deep threat and being a vertical monster.
Yeah.
You know, being a 50-50 guy. I want to see what he can do all along the field because that's gonna keep defenses guessing. That's going to prevent him from being one-dimensional, and that's going to allow him to make plays all over the field.
There's always room for growth.
And that trait for a wide receiver is incredible because once you become one-dimensional, it's kind of easy for teams to scheme against. So once Pickens is able to further along his route tree and his style as a wide receiver, again, sky's the limit. We're looking at an elite wide receiver.
And that's exactly what A.J. Brown did back in his Tennessee days when he first came into the NFL and he was working with Arthur Smith and Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. We already knew the type of build he got, the vertical threat he was, but he worked on the route running. Now he's one of the absolute best, one of the most dependable guys in the NFL with Philly. And Arthur Smith worked with that early in his offensive coordinator days.
Absolutely.
Now he's working with another stud and George Pickens with similar size, but the agility, in my opinion, to the par of a prime DeAndre Hopkins and how dependable Pickens already is. I mean, I'm not trying to overhype the guy. I'm not. But you've seen what he's able to do with bad quarterback play and a bad offensive scheme. Now we're looking to get better. We on paper it's better.
Yes. I even look at like a Drake London the past 2 years in Atlanta. And yes, you can say that Atlanta's offense was a little underwhelming and they didn't really have incredible or stellar or dependable quarterback play, and some of the talents were underutilized, like a Kyle Pitts or maybe the running game or perhaps a Drake London, because Drake London could have had 1,000 yards last year. He was very well close. He could have had 1,000 yards his first 2 seasons, as a matter of fact. So, yes, you could make the argument that he was underutilized, and that's mostly due to Arthur Smith and the fact he had to play head coach and OC. But, you know, I even look at it like a Drake London. A little underutilized, I'm not going to lie to you, but you see how he was able to scheme a Drake London up. He still was able to have close to 1,000 yards. He had more yards than Deontay last year.
He did, that's right.
And he was the number 1 last year.
Yeah.
So imagine what he's going to do now that he has responsibilities of as an offense coordinator only, working with a guy like George Pickens. I mean, again, it's looking great for George Pickens in year 3. And honestly, if he bursts onto the scene and has another incredible season, has an elite type season like a Jamar Chase potential like season, The guy could have a big contract coming his way.
Yeah.
A massive in the wide receiver market. Yes, it's insane. But I mean, Pickens has already shown like he's an incredible wide receiver. So if he bursts onto the scene in year 3, yeah, he's going to get paid, and as he should.
Yeah, and he's a guy that if he lives up to expectations, he lives up to a true number 1 this upcoming season. He's a guy you cannot let walk. He's a guy that you cannot let leave your team if he's that X factor, if he's that impactful.
No.
To your quarterback, to your offense, to your team.
No, not at all.
When it comes to the NFL and the salary cap and the business side of things, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, people are getting ridiculous amounts of overpay, but you got to do what you got to do in order to keep the talent that you drafted for your future.
Yeah, you got to pay certain receivers, or you got to pay certain players market value. It's just the way the NFL business is now. It's not the most agreed on. It's not, the most ideal situation. It's just how the NFL goes. The market value increases every year. You got to pay guys market value. And I think George Pickens is due for a big contract if he shows up in year 3, which I think we all agree. Yeah, I mean, we all trust George Pickens to burst onto the scene. So George Pickens in year 3, man. How you guys feeling? How excited are you? What do you want to see specifically from George Pickens? In fact, if you guys have any stat predictions, give us in the comments below. I'd like to hear you guys' opinions, man. George Pickens in year 3, we can't be more excited. And my goodness, man, we really do have a wide receiver 1, a playmaker, once again, a wide receiver. I don't know how the Steelers keep doing it, but they keep doing it. And we're looking at...
They keep doing it?
We could, dude, I'm being honest, man. We could have another elite wide receiver in a wide receiver room, man, with George Pickens.
That's great to have.
It really is. Let us know your guys' thoughts down below. Here we go, Steelers, man.
As always, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later. Peace!